To the UK, where British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson is resisting calls to resign over his controversial comments about a British Iranian woman who's in jail in Iran. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe is already serving a 5-year sentence, accused of plotting to bring down the Iranian government, claims that her family say are false. But now Nazanin's husband says Iran is threatening to increase her sentence because of incorrect statements made by Boris Johnson to a UK parliamentary committee. Anne Barker reports.
The family of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe has spent months lobbying the British government to speak out against her imprisonment in Iran and demand her release. But far from helping her case, Boris Johnson's remarks to a parliamentary committee last week may serve to double her sentence.
When you look at what Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe was doing, it's just, she was simply teaching people journalism, as I understand it.
Those words directly contradict what her husband Richard Ratcliffe has insisted all along, that Ms Zaghari-Ratcliffe was on holiday in Tehran visiting her family when she was arrested and jailed in April last year. Now he says his wife has been hauled back to court and Boris Johnson's comments presented as proof she'd used propaganda to bring down the regime. Iranian authorities, he says, are now threatening to increase her sentence.
Spent the best part of a year asking for the government to say she's innocent, and it hasn't all along, and also to acknowledge that her rights are being abused in this amazing way. The government's never done that either. So there are things that at various points, every so often, it catches my breath still as to how can this be? How, this is a British mum on holiday, taken in an arbitrary way, used by this regime for whatever purposes. Surely the government's job is to protect her and say that's wrong.
Ms Zaghari-Ratcliffe's employer, Thomson Reuters, has also hit out at the British Foreign Secretary, insisting she's not even a journalist and certainly never trained journalists in Iran. The company's CEO, Monique Villa, has demanded Boris Johnson correct his remarks.
Well, damage has been caused. Now, he offered also, when he spoke on the 1st of November, to go to Iran, to see Nazanin in jail. I suggest he goes to Iran, he sees Nazanin in jail, and he brings her back home. That's all we're waiting for. Nazanin is 100% innocent. She's obviously a bargaining chip between the government of Iran and the UK. And you cannot play with a human being.
Mr Johnson says he's sorry for any anxiety he's caused Ms Zaghari-Ratcliffe's family and says he acknowledges his comments could have been clearer.
The UK government has no doubt that she was on holiday in Iran when she was arrested last year, and that was the sole purpose of her visit. My point was that I disagreed with the Iranian view that training journalists was a crime. Not that I wanted to lend any credence to Iranian allegations that Mrs Zaghari-Ratcliffe had been engaged in such activity. I accept that my remarks could have been clearer in that respect, and I'm glad to provide this clarification.
But it's not enough to placate his critics. The Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry says Mr Johnson should show personal responsibility for the distress and anguish his foolish words have caused and step down.
What will it take before the Prime Minister says enough is enough? But if the truth is that she can't because she doesn't have the strength or authority to sack him, how about the Foreign Secretary himself shows a bit of personal responsibility and admits that a job like this, where your words hold gravity and your actions have consequences, it is simply not the job for him.
Britain's Foreign Office says Mr Johnson's remarks provide no justifiable basis to bring additional charges against Ms Zaghari-Ratcliffe or increase her sentence. Mr Johnson says he plans to visit Iran before the end of the year to discuss her detention and that he phoned Iran's foreign minister yesterday to express his anxiety at her continued suffering. Mr Ratcliffe says he's been denied a visa to travel to Iran to visit his wife or see his daughter, Gabriella.
Gabriella's still in Iran. I can't get a visa to get over there to visit her and to talk through with Nazanin. And I've made it clear to Nazanin that it's her choice what happens to Gabriella. And that we're still going to try and bring them both home for Christmas.
Iran's foreign ministry says a decision on Ms Zaghari-Ratcliffe's case is in the hands of the Iranian judiciary.
Anne Barker reporting.